He says, I spake as a child. Then he says, I thought as a child. I want to talk a little bit about thinking as a child. Well, let me do understanding. I think of understanding first. You understand. He says, I understood as a child. The word understood in the Greek language means to have an opinion of oneself, to think of oneself, to be modest, to not let one's opinion of himself exceed the bounds of modesty. I understood. I kept myself limited in my understanding. Not too much challenge. Just keep it kind of basic in an attempt to call myself modest. I understood myself to be on a certain level. How do you understand yourself? To be on what level? Whatever you have understood about yourself, if that thing is not mature, it is keeping you dwarfed. This is going to be deep tonight. Now this gets down to the depths of real healing, because this is the stuff we talk to no one about. We talk to no one about this kind of thing. We don't admit to anybody that we have low self-esteem. We hide it in anger, jealousy, and intimidation. But at the root of it is low self-esteem. It hides in promiscuity and perversion, but at the root of it is low self-esteem. People don't walk up to you and say, hi, I got low self-esteem. And so half the time you are way over into the relationship before you figure out, hey, you know what's wrong with you? You got low self-esteem. I understood myself to basically be simple. And when you challenge me, I get angry. I used briefly this morning an illustration where the therapist was challenging my mother. It made her angry immediately. She'd been through major surgery. They were asking her to do things that used to be simple, but now it was hard to do. And it made her hot. And it always makes you hot when life asks you to do something that you understand yourself not to be able to do. I come to tell you something. You have defined yourself by your understanding. There are certain things you have said to yourself about yourself that has defined you, and you understand yourself to be within certain perimeters. And what deliverance is when we break through the wall of how you see yourself. That's why Peter and John came up to the man who was lame and told him in the name of Jesus, get up and walk. Said, you have decided you're crippled. You got a coat, you got a cup, you got all kind of support systems for your crippled condition, because you have understood yourself to be limited. And even though you have come to church, you do not expect to walk. And even after they commanded him to stand up, he did not get up. They had to literally yank him by the hand to get him up, because it is horrifying once you have understood yourself to be a certain way to go beyond it. There will be praise reports behind this service. There will be praise reports of all descriptions. There will be healings behind this service, physical healings in your body, in your cells, in your joints, in your corpuscles, in your tissues. There will be healings behind this word. Somebody's soul escaped out of the snare of the fowler because of this word. This word is a liberating word. This word is a word of release. A word of release. Release, 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 release. Somebody shout release, release, release. Release, release, release. Release, release, release. Release every contract. Release the property that's tied up. Release the promotions over my life. Release, 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 release. Every promise that's been tied up. Release, release, release. There's some court papers that's got your life threatening upon the siege. But God said release, 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 release. I declare release over your son. I declare release over your daughter. You've been tied up. I declare release. Release in the name of Jesus. Release, 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 release. There's some legal matters. God said release, 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 release. You haven't been able to get it released. You haven't been able to get to the right person. But the Holy Ghost said release. Holy Ghost.
Love you, Daddy.
Motivation at your fingertips.